And so you never really know when you're live. So it's always good to start talking a little bit before everything's fired. But I think we're live on all channels now, Angel. Good morning.
Yay. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here, Tellman.
Yeah, me too. Welcome, everybody. Episode 36 of the Get Shit Done show. I'm very, very excited. I was just telling Eric yesterday that I've been preaching and teaching for people to, at first it was send emails every day. For years it was send emails every day, and it still is. But then I started teaching all of my students to start broadcasting every day. And I found that they had so much resistance to this. And I kept falling off the wagon. I kept not following through on broadcasting every day myself. I couldn't get myself to do it. And so I was told for years out of alignment, like telling people to do one thing I wasn't able to manage to do myself, wondering why my students weren't doing this thing. And then, so now we're on episode 36, 7 days a week. That's my longest streak of broadcasting every day. And I'm super stoked that I finally found what appears to be a formula that works for me. And all sorts of other people are getting inspired to start shows and things. So it's very exciting. So welcome to episode 36. It's great to have you here as your first co-host episode.
Yeah, I'm excited. And let me ring my bell for you for going 36 days in a row, because nice. I know how challenging it can be to commit to something and keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. So yeah.
At least so far, it's really building momentum. And like internally, I have zero resistance around it at this point. And it's a great way to start the day. Like it really, really is good. And so we are, for the Get Shit Done show, we're hoping to do a lot more interviews, bring a lot more co-hosts in, and then bring a third party interviews in once we have all of our co-hosts dialed in and established. So it should be pretty fun. Yeah. But I know that you're no stranger to podcasting and broadcasting. And so before we get started, I like to start every episode with positive focus and state what we're happiest or most excited about in our lives right now. Like at this moment, it can be anything. And to kick it off, I will say that I am very excited that I'm feeling good this morning. I've been like sick for 2 weeks. 2 days ago, I had a headache as I was going to bed. I woke up feeling like on the edge of being sick yesterday and was very tired and low energy all day yesterday. And I woke up feeling full of energy and really good and kind of back on point and life feels like it's worth living again. So the cold or whatever was going on seems to have mostly lifted. And I'm back to feeling kind of like my energetic, optimistic self. So it's a breath of fresh air. How about you, Angel? What's good for you?
I just spent the weekend at Kripalu Center in Western Massachusetts in the Berkshires and had an amazing weekend with the CEO of Kripalu and the programming director of Kripalu put together a thing called Walking the Ancestral Way.
Oh, cool.
And so I've been a medicine carrier in the Cairo tradition since 2003. And they both also, I discovered, were medicine carriers. So it was like, I'm getting regrounded back into the original traditional material that kind of started my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And that was just like, it was like a homecoming, so I'm feeling really grounded and I'm feeling really clear and I'm feeling really intentional about remembering that everything that I create in the world has to be grounded in the medicine, as the baseline. So that's
and which tradition did you say?
Quero, Q''ERO. Quero, they are the people of the high Andes, the Inca people. Sometimes they're called the Inca, but their real name is Quero, Q''ERO.
That's cool. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, when I was in college, I was studying altered states and peak performance and brain waves, and I ultimately went into studying cross-cultural shamanism, and
it's shamanism.
Studying the use of altered states throughout time and history. And I was not diving deep into hallucinogenics at all. I was more focused on the non-hallucinogenic shamanic traditions. And that led me into kind of modern day hypnosis. And so I apprenticed with 3 different shamans in college and wrote papers on like parapsychology, anthropological kind of papers, and ended up getting into hypnosis as a result of diving into cross-cultural shamanism. And so maybe we'll talk more about that today. Maybe we'll talk about it more in the future. It's interesting stuff. At one point I was studying the Mongolian language and learning blacksmithing to go and do a Mongolian nomadic shamanism apprenticeship with someone that did not speak any English, and it never ended up happening, but because of like a family health crisis and some other stuff. But shamanism is really I mean, I know it's an American generalized term, but it's a fantastic body of knowledge and area to dive deep on. So
yeah,
that's cool.
well,
That's cool. How old were you when you got into that?
So I can give you a little backstory. Basically, I spent the first 20 years of my career in the real estate business. And at the end of that career, I was the national chairperson for my trade association, representing 1 in 8 homeowners in the country. And I was also building a project with 2 partners, 51 single family houses, 56 apartments, and an office building. And then I had a spiritual awakening. And as a result of that spiritual awakening, which really initiated with yoga, it really, that was the initial kind of spark that started to activate my spiritual awakening. It started with yoga. And then in 2002, I made my first visit to Kripalu as a divorce gift to myself from my first husband. And by 2003, late 2002, early 2003, I started to pop open. And interestingly enough, my massage therapist at the time was also a hypnotist. And I had this sudden calling to become a crystal healer. It was like it came out of nowhere to be a crystal healer. And so I asked my massage therapist, I said, do you know anybody that does this? Because I figured I probably ought to have a crystal healing before I became one. And she had just been at the National Hypnotist Conference that often
in New England.
In Nashua.
It was
literally
it was in New Hampshire right then.
Yeah, in Nashua, which is the city I live in.
Do you remember her name?
The massage therapist?
Yeah. Because I was going to the NGH conferences back then.
Sandy was her first name. I can't remember her last name now because it was many years ago. But anyway, Sandy, she's passed on now. Anyway, Sandy was sitting next to this woman at the conference who gave her business card. It was one of those synchronistic things. So I said to Sandy, I said, do you know anybody who does crystal healing? She said, oh, last week I was at the hypnotist conference. I was sitting next to the woman. She gave me her card. Her name was Catherine Amston. You might know Catherine. And so Catherine taught me crystal healing and then said to me, do you want to be my apprentice in shamanic work? And I didn't know what the hell she was talking about. I was like, yes, let's do this. And so that's how I got started. So she was a hypnotist and a shamanic medicine woman and, Reiki and crystals and all the things. So she was my first teacher. And then I went through the medicine wheel with her. And then I ended up in the Healing the Light Body School run by Dr. Alberto Villaldo. And they're, they brought in the Quero people from Peru to do, initiations with us. So that's kind of like the baseline of it. But since then, I've done all kinds of other things, Celtic shamanism, Toltec shamanism, and so that's kind of the genesis. So hypnosis is woven into my background too, a little bit. I never studied or got certified in hypnosis, but a lot of what shamanic journey work is it's hypnosis. It's all the same stuff.
Slightly different language.
Yeah, it's all the same
different
stuff.
metaphors. It's all the same stuff. That's really cool. Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Interesting backstory. So, so we're here on the Get Shit Done show. We're going to talk a little bit today about distractions and how to maintain focus on what's important, whether that's our business and actions that need to happen in our business or some other aspect of our life, when our attention is being violently drawn elsewhere, on a moment by moment basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, that's kind of one of the primary principles or one of the guiding forces behind the entire Get Shit Done movement is how to effectively block out distractions and get the stuff done that you need to get done in order to grow. Right. That's kind of the idea. And there are a wide variety of tools that we can use to make that happen. But we were talking about this a little bit before we went live. So Anjel, for you, just so that you can be clear and so that everyone watching can be clear and I can be clear, if you can just give us a little bit of a snapshot of what your business is and how it works so that people can relate, oh, she runs a kind of a business just like my business, or what, or has similarities. So what's the long and your short of what your business is, who you help, how do you help them, and like, what are the day-to-day activities that you really need to do in order to make your business work? Yes, and then in short, just over.
Yeah. Well, so I actually am running 3 different brands. So I'm just going to focus on my main consulting brand, because the other 2 brands, I'm in process with building that are attached to my 2 podcasts. So for my main consultancy business, what I do is I work with people who are called to create an innovative shift in their particular field. They're like sleeper cells in every field, every industry, the law, education, medical, whatever industry, it doesn't matter. But they're like a sleeper cell in that field that has an innovative, evolutionary new idea that is going to be a game changer. It's going to create a whole new, a ripple in that field and elevate and evolve that field. And what I do to support them is I really help them to take that vision and ground it in very practical business model that's going to be monetizable and sustainable for the long haul, for, to be a legacy body of work, a legacy business. So yeah, that's the core of what I do with my business. The people that I'm here to serve can be, they can be seasoned, let's say seasoned professionals that have been in their industry for 20 years or so. They could be people who have left their industry and have started doing consulting or training or coaching or something, but they haven't quite gelled or crystallized their business model, or they're not monetizing properly. I like to focus on the foundation. I think, every business, at its core, all a business is make an offer, make the sale, and serve the offer. Like, that's the baseline of any business, and everything else is, kind of optional.
Right. So, okay. So it sounds like you mostly help entrepreneurs and business owners.
Mm-hmm. Or emerging, people. It could be somebody who's leaving a corporate position after 20 or 25 years, and they're like ready to get started consulting. So
right. Yeah. But they know what they're doing.
They do. They have a body. They may not know how to set up the business model, though.
Right. But they have expertise.
Correct.
And do you mostly work with clients one-on-one, or do you have mostly group programs?
Primarily, it's one-on-one.
So
I'm very boutique.
Consulting. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Very boutique, high end. I mean, I've done group occasionally.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's the core of my business. The core of my business is high end, very high invested, boutique style consulting.
And what are the primary things that you do in order to get customers and clients?
Yeah. So podcasting. I have 2 podcasts. That's the primary lead source, is through my podcasts.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so, and you interview I listened to some of your podcast episodes. So you interview people on your podcast, right?
I do.
And, Wickedly Smart Women, which you interview women right?
Correct.
And so, are you originally from New Hampshire, or did you move to New Hampshire?
I was born in born in Nashua and lived in Hollis my whole life. And
Yeah.
then,
All right.
now I've lived in Nashua my whole life. I grew up in Hollis and lived in Nashua.
Yeah, you totally have the New Hampshire vibe. I love it. I love it. So podcasting's your number one thing.
Mm-hmm.
What we're getting toward distraction here in a moment, but what are the things or some of the things that you need to be doing more frequently, with more presence, with more intensity, with higher levels of skill, more frequently and or better? Or maybe there's something you need to start doing that you've been dragging your feet on, that you find you have intentions of doing this thing, you want to do this thing, you should do this thing, but you don't, and then you get distracted by something else that grabs your attention. Is there anything like that?
Well, yeah. So let me just say, podcasting, like I've got the podcasting dialed in. I've got a very specific schedule. I have it set up so that I take a hiatus in the summer so that I don't burn myself out. That is dialed in. What I want to do with the podcasts is each of them is their own brand. And I already had there's a first podcast that I sold. I was the first independent podcaster that I know of to actually sell a podcast. Back in 2020, I sold my first podcast. So I know each of these podcasts is their own brand. And so I'm building each of them out and building their own offers that go with them so that they can be sold too, if they want, if I want to sell them. From the consulting side of things, the consulting business side of things, the secondary way I get the word out is speaking. So, I am definitely in a place, I'm at the point right now where I'm ready to amp up the speaking a little bit more, become more, I can easily get 12 or 15 speaking gigs booked a month, but I want those speaking gigs to be more intentional. I want the criteria to be clearer. I want myself to be in front of the correct fit audience better. And I want to be able to convert better from appearances.
Okay. So when you say you want to be able to convert better, do you want to speak and sell, or speak to generate leads, or what do you mean?
Speaking to generate leads to build a buying audience. I'm not interested. I mean, I've been in this business now for almost 2 decades myself, Tellman. So I went through the period of time where I built this gigantic, big ass audience that wasn't buying from me because they just loved my content, but they weren't buying from me. You know what I mean? So
right.
I would much rather have a very small, very actively buying audience than having a gigantic audience just to have a big number that is not buying.
Right. On that note, Arden, good morning. Arden chimes in, says Wednesday morning, let's get shit done. Arden's going to come on the show soon. He's very active commenter and fan of the Get Shit Done show. So when you say that you want to build I'm confused, because when you say you're going to be speaking, and you want to convert better, but then you want to be generating leads, but then you also want a buying audience, that it does. I don't quite understand what you're going for.
So let me frame it for you. So if I'm speaking here on Get Shit Done, and I am putting something in front of this audience to lead gen, I don't want leads that aren't going to convert
into,
you know what I mean?
Into private clients,
right? Into private clients, or buy anything. I mean, they could buy my book. They could buy my book. Buy something. I am interested. What I want is a buying list, a list that is curated, that is filled with perfect prospects. So from my perspective, marketing, the whole purpose of marketing is to prepare the perfect prospect to purchase pronto.
Sure.
Like, that's the whole purpose of marketing. It's not to just be out here talking all day long and not have anything happening. Not have anything, not. So my intention is, if I am going to speak, and we'll use this as an example.
Sure.
In any kind of an appearance, that I am speaking such that the people in the audience who are most aligned with who I am and what I'm here to do and are looking for the support and are ready to invest are going to go to my website, opt in to my mailing list, end up on a sales call with me, and convert into a client. Like, it's pretty linear.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're building out offers for these 3 different brands.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get back to what are you getting distracted? What are the actual activities that you're getting distracted from doing?
Well, we'll just use this morning for an example.
Yeah.
Because I think part of being, from an energetic perspective, part of being a good magnet is showing up fully present and not distracted, showing up, to an appearance. Like, that's basic. The basic thing is I need to show up prepared to have the conversation with you, to be present, to be embodied. And this morning I picked up the phone and got down the rabbit hole of some of the latest excitement that's happening in our federal government. And what it did for me was it made me squish. Like, I was like, oh my God, I only have 2 minutes before I need to be showing up with Tellman. And if I only have 2 minutes, now I'm, anxious. I'm like rushing. I'm not present because I gave my time away to the distraction. And kind of the subtlety here is, as a business owner, I do need to be informed about what's going on in the environment and not keep my head in the sand.
Right.
But at the same time, I need to show up to be on the Get Shit Done show present. You know what I mean?
So there are a few interesting things that are going on here, though, right? Yeah, I do. I totally know what you mean. And I've done a lot of interviews in my time, and my experience is that you showed up like 10 minutes before the hour. You were here before I was in the studio. You didn't to me seem like your head was in the clouds or that you were off doing something else. And like, you were totally ready to go for your first episode with me ever, like on the money. You were on point, and you brought the topic of being distracted by all this other, garbage that's going on in the world as an entrepreneur and how to stay focused. And that's what we're talking about right now. So I do understand that getting distracted by the media, by the news, by politics, by violence, by, whatever terrible thing is happening in the world is an issue. And I do want to dive into that. But I also just want to say that, I don't know, you showed up on time. We're having an awesome episode so far. So like, also so far so good, right?
Well, I want to thank you for reflecting that. And I've been doing this so there's kind of muscle memory. I've been in the spotlight and speaking for years. I've been on more than 1,000 stages, probably closer to 2,000 stages at this point, both live and virtual. And in me, like, I value integrity. In me, there's still a little window open that says, what the fuck is going on out there? Right. You know what I mean? Right. Like, and so like that, it's an energy drain. I mean, I can literally feel it. I can feel like there's this energy drain that is not allowing 100% presence.
Right. Well, one thing that I can definitely say that may or may not be helpful to you or anyone else, I don't know, but I don't personally, when you talk about having your head in the sand, in many ways, I have my head in the sand, and I always have, very intentionally, especially when it comes to politics, and any type of news. Personally, I just don't read the newspaper. I don't listen to the news on the radio. I don't look at the news on any internet stuff. And so any news that does come across my field of vision is like it's forced on me. It's like a conversation I have to listen to in line at the falafel, restaurant or whatever. And for me, I just like to choose as much as possible what I'm going to beam into my head, and I like to have as much like influence over that as possible so that I'm not constantly more distracted than I already am, because I'm already very easily distracted. It's not like I'm a super focused person. So this morning I had a similar experience on Facebook, where I have been a member of a Facebook group for my hometown, or not my hometown, but my town since college, that I live in. And it has turned into a very, 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 very negative group in the last 6 months. And I normally just scroll past negative stuff in my feed, but it's just been pervasive lately. I think one of the posts caught my attention and I read it, and Facebook knew that, and it started showing me more of them. So I left this negative Facebook group that is, filled with thousands of people that I know, because it's no longer helpful. Right. And so the good news is we all have a lot more choice over our inputs between ad blockers and social media limiting apps and all these types of things that we can install to set up guidelines or blinders in a way, to help prevent some of the stuff from coming in. But everyone has different sensitivity for how much they want to have their ear to the ground with what's going on in the world. Right.
Right. And let me just say also that I shut off the news in 2001. I stopped the newspaper. I stopped the news. I didn't pay attention to the news. And now, again, like you said, part of our business is being on social media.
It is.
Okay. It's being on social media
being timely and responsive to what's going on in the world and the worries and fears of our customers and clients and subscribers and all this stuff.
And so it's as much as you try to put the blinders up, inevitably it seems that you're going to see the stuff that's happening somehow, whether it's a little LinkedIn, headline over here or a Facebook post like you're talking about, it's coming in. And so, I think
there's always emotional stuff happening and overhyped stuff that's being amplified by the media to get your eyeballs, to get your attention.
Totally.
So is there a, in terms of getting distracted by all the stuff that's out there, the other piece to keep in mind is that the distractions that you do notice yourself getting pulled away by are, if you have the attention for it, if you have the awareness, that's what today's email is about. Is about that topic that distracted you, and if there's something that's that big of a deal that's going to pull you away from your important priorities in your life, maybe that's the thing that you should be writing about or talking about or broadcasting about or doing a post about today, because and then tying it back into your message.
Yeah,
right.
I do that. I do often will take, so that's part of the shamanic work, right? Tellman is take the shit and turn it into fertilizer. Right?
There's a quote that I heard in Strategic Coach from Dan Sullivan, and he was quoting, I think he was, I don't know, this could be a total lie, but I think he was quoting Jean-Baptiste Sayes. Am I getting that right? Or am I just memorizing? My memory might be misfiring, but basically the idea is that entrepreneurs take resources from a lower level of productivity to a higher level of productivity. You turn trash into treasure, right? Which is classic shamanic stuff, right? Same thing. So, for you, what is, it's Wednesday, right? Like in terms of moving something forward that isn't moving forward as quickly as you want in your business, is it getting that first offer, or maybe not first, but getting that next offer out what's the initiative, whether it's a project that you're trying to get knocked out or a regular task that you're trying to get more consistent on? What's the thing that you're trying to focus on more right now?
So, well, I'm going to come back to, I think for me, one of the things I've chosen to do is do things quarter by quarter, like 90 days, like the 90-day initiative. And right now, the 90-day initiative is well underway. And my job as the CEO and founder, chief excitement officer here at my business, right, is to be to the next quarter. Like I already need to be thinking of the next quarter. Like what are we doing in Q2? Because my team is already in the implementation process of our initiative for Q1. So for Q2, I will come back to saying that I want my project right now is to get my speaking system more streamlined, my appearances more fruitful, the time that I'm spending, doing appearances, have those be more fruitful, dialing in what is it that, I want to say to what communities, like the criteria of the people that I want, the platforms that I want to be on. So I'm in that place right now. Excuse me. I'm going to mute.
Okay. All right. So that totally makes sense in terms of speaking and focusing on the platforms.
And getting the criteria in place so that my operations manager can do some of the things that are required to get booked for speaking and have it off of my plate, like filling out all the forms and.
Well, let's bring it down to a to-do list. What is something that you want to get done that isn't going to get done unless you focus on it in the next 8 weeks to like fold it into the quarter, whether it's your
one simple thing
for the next one,
one simple thing I could be doing right now is really getting even clearer on the criteria of what shows I show up on, what platforms I show up on, what audience I show up in front of, getting just much clearer on that criteria, because it doesn't make sense to be out, spraying the fire hose across all kinds of different places. I need to be more precise in where I'm showing up and how I'm showing up. Yeah.
Okay. So being more precise is a sentiment, but it's not a to-do list item.
Okay.
Right.
Getting my criteria done. Getting the criteria done is a to-do.
Well, I mean, you could get it done in 30 seconds. Like, who do you want to show up in front of?
I want to show up in front of.
Like, who do you want to get more of?
I want to show up. So let's use the Wickedly Smart Women brand for this. I want to show up in front of women who are preparing to leave their corporate jobs, have the thought I could be a consultant, and need the support to get started consulting and want to invest with somebody who can help them to structure a map, a strategy for their consultancy business.
Professional women who want to become consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Awesome. That's super clear. And I mean, whether you're showing up on a YouTube channel or a podcast, or, I mean, obviously LinkedIn is where you want to spend your time as a general rule, right? In that kind of situation. And I mean, you know exactly who you want to show up in front of.
For that brand. Yes, absolutely. For that brand.
But what's the action item? Like, what's the thing that you need, that you're getting, that you're resisting right now? Like, what do you actually want to start getting, like, either get done or start getting done on a regular basis? Like, these I want to start doing push-ups every day so I can get up to 500 push-ups in a row in the next 3 months. Like that, like something that someone can take a picture of. So something that's very tangible, very real.
Right. So I want to get booked to speak on at least 15 virtual stages where the audience is professional women who are getting ready to leave corporate and want to start consulting.
And when you say virtual stages, you mean webinars, yeah?
Podcasts, summits, could be webinars too.
So you want 15? Is that
15,
what you said?
yeah.
By when?
By the end of the second quarter, I want to be booked on at least 15.
Great. So what do you need to do in order to get booked?
Again, I think we need to research to make sure that I'm not wasting my time with the wrong audience. We need to do some research on specific stages that are going to have that audience.
Yes, but research is also a great procrastination mechanism to not get booked.
I can get booked, Tellman. I literally can, I can get booked right now on 15 stages.
Okay.
I want to get booked on 15 correct stages.
Okay. Well, how do you know if they're correct?
I think that there needs to be a little bit of research, because in the past I've done the spray and pray, booking myself on all kinds of things. And I feel like I want to be more precise this time. I feel like I want to be more intentional. I feel like I want to be more, they said that, I think it's Abraham Lincoln said that when he was going to cut down a cherry tree, he spent 7 hours sharpening his axe,
right,
and then used the last hour to cut down the cherry tree. I don't feel like I'm procrastinating so much as I want to be more intentional with the use of my time, energy, and attention.
Okay. Do you like to do research?
I hate it.
I also hate research, right?
I'm in Colby. I'm a 2 on research. I suck at research, but I'm a quick start. So literally I don't have a problem getting booked. I can get booked anywhere pretty much.
So there are 2 things that are jumping out at me on this, Angel, that might be helpful to you. And in some cases you might need to do some new stuff. And in some cases you might be able to repurpose some old stuff. Probably a little bit of both, but what I'm seeing is, from a strategic level, number one is there are 2 people in particular that are teaching this right now. One is Alan Sultanich with Nothing Held Back, and the other is Onyx Sindal with his low ticket offers thing he's been focused on lately. Both of them are essentially teaching a model, like Alan's been teaching this for several years, a really great model called automatic clients. And what he teaches is create a book or a digital course that has everything in your system, in your process, that you would work with a one-on-one client for. You systemize the entire thing, you create a course on it and or a book, transcribe it, whatever, however you're going to do it. But basically you create a comprehensive handbook and course that for anyone that goes through it and implements it, they get essentially the same result as they would paying you, $60,000 for the year or whatever, whatever it is that you're going to charge people to work with you, And so, step 1 is create a book or a course that is the definitive handbook on your process. Leave nothing out. Okay. Step 1. Step 2, sell it for less than $27. Okay. Make it a super low ticket offer on the front end. And the reason is because, well, there are a few reasons. First reason is 80% of your buyers are still hobbyists. Okay. 90% won't even complete the course. And of those that do, very few will have the initiative to implement it or the self-confidence or the focus to implement it alone. Okay. And the people who have money know they need hand-holding, they know they need accountability, and they know they need regularly scheduled meetings to keep them and their team on point. And or they have extra money and they know that somebody could implement it better than their team if it's a done-for-you solution. And so basically the law of natural selection weeds out your customers from your clients, because your customers are the hobbyists,
right?
And your clients are more serious business owners or professionals that are ready to take the leap. So maybe your book or your course is called "I Can Become a Consultant," or something, right? And you bring people that through that whole process, and the reason is you want to inspire them. And by nature, if you're teaching them your whole thing and all they've done is read a book or take a home study course over the course of 3 months or however long your course is, they're going to be by nature overwhelmed and want help or assistance. And that help or assistance can then come in the form of, it could come in the form of a free or a low cost monthly group. It could come in the form of high touch, working with you one-on-one for a year. It could be a 90-day 3-month sprint, and what have you. So when you sell the low ticket product, you're also putting in really, really strategic upsell path that supports them in implementing what they learned in the book more completely and faster. And again, gives them further exposure to how awesome you and your process and your system is, so that the people who have the money and want the help can easily self-select and self-ascend. So that's one piece that you might want to consider, is rather than building a free email list and just having a bunch of looky-loos who are never going to buy anything, if you did create a model like this following either Allen or Onyx blueprint, what you would be creating is a paid media worthy offer that you can drive advertising dollars to in order to build your customer base directly and essentially bypass the free email list. Generate customers, and then from those customers, if the volume is high enough, you're going to self-sort into clients. So that's one piece to the puzzle that might be a road that you could consider going down to help get more paying customers in the front door as your primary thing. The second piece is built on the first. And the second piece is, rather than doing podcasts as the primary thing, I'm not saying don't do podcasts. I'm not saying stop doing your podcasts, but instead of focusing on being a guest for other people's podcasts, because you're like, I have to do the research, I don't want to just do a podcast and hope for the best, is really, really get good at the art of doing sales webinars.
Right.
And the reason to get really, really good at the art of doing sales webinars is, just like there's a podcast circuit and crew and a whole bunch of people who are out there podcasting, there's also a very active webinar circuit of people with webinars that cross promote each other. When you get on the webinar circuit and your presentation converts because you've really created an amazing sales webinar, you also have a revenue engine. And what you can do is, when people opt in to register for your webinar, you can send them a link to go buy your book or your course before the webinar happens, to get a jump start on what you're going to cover in the webinar. Because the reality is, when you do webinars, you're lucky if you get 30% of your people to show up. Right. And so 70% of the people that register for a webinar still aren't going to show up, but they're all going to hit the thank you page, where you could then move them on to a low ticket offer and turn a high percentage of those into paying customers and clients, whether or not they show up to the webinar. So getting into a weekly webinar rhythm and learning a webinar process and blueprint, so you can go in and consistently close and sell something, say in as low as $300. I mean, as low as whatever you want, as low as $300, as high as $5,000 directly from a webinar. That could be a way of generating immediate money when you do a speaking engagement, by doing a webinar rather than a content piece for a podcast.
Right. So I actually spent 5 years with Lisa Sasevich, the queen of sales conversion. And so I understand the whole webinar model. And have not found that it worked very well for me, although I can take somebody through the process of building one myself really well, because I can see where, all the things need to be put in place. So, yeah, I'm going to sit with both of these suggestions, the tripwire model and the webinar model, and see where the energy is for me, whether there's resistance there or not. There may be some resistance because I've done the webinars and had not, didn't have conversions. So,
You know what?
yeah.
Actually, interestingly, there's a really, really good book by Jason Fladlian, who's kind of the current webinar. I mean, he's been teaching webinars for 10 years, and he's really, really smart. His book's called One to Many.
Mm-hmm.
You might want to check it out. It might give you a different model. I found that some webinar models work great and drive millions of dollars in sales, and other scripts and models and processes that I follow are total duds.
Right.
I've gone through so many different webinar, like I've purchased and learned so many different webinar models, and some of them have crushed it for me, and some of them have fallen completely flat. So I would, if it didn't work well for you, consider
look at a different model.
Some of the other recipes that are out there. Something else might work better.
Right. Yeah. Look at a different model. I think one of the reasons the podcast works so well for me is because I actually create rapport with the person. I can find out a lot about the person. They're coming to me. I'm not going after them. The clients who come to me are basically guests from my show. And I'm certainly not going to give up that model right now because it's generating multiple six figures.
I'm not saying give up.
One show just generated multiple six figures last year all by itself. So, and I have 2 shows doing that. So yeah, I am in that place of saying, okay, where do I want to tweak my business model to bring in more of the right fit people? And really, I think with the Wickedly Smart Women. So what I'm hearing here is what I've got set up is for Wickedly Smart Women, I've got an offer. The offer is the Wickedly Smart Women Smart Start Intensive. It's a 30-day intensive, and it gives them all the things they need to end up with the blueprint for their consulting business. And I built a roadmap, a PDF opt-in roadmap, free opt-in roadmap. So, which is the 10 signs that it's time for you to leave corporate and start consulting before it's too late, is the Wickedly Smart Women's roadmap. So maybe I take and not use the free roadmap is what I'm hearing you say, and instead take the whole Smart Start Intensive and put it into a book. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Don't do the free PDF opt-in?
Well, you said you don't want a free list, right? So if you don't want free opt-ins, don't have people opt in for a free list. Step 1.
Gotcha.
Right? Like if you're going to start doing the webinar model, you're still going to be building a free list. But if you're building a free list and then immediately driving people to buy a low ticket offer before the webinar starts, then you're going to be generating a bunch of customers, even though you're also building a free list.
Great.
And then if you do create the low ticket front end offer, you may skip the webinar model entirely and just focus on creating front end customers and clients with paid ads. That method might work better for just the way you roll. And if that were the case, I mean, the idea is, get a sales model where you can generate 100 front end sales a day and turn 1 or 2 of those sales into either a sales call or a higher ticket client and then skip the entire sales call process if your volume is high enough.
Right.
And so, rather than talking about the roadmap or the blueprint, I would go so far as to say, if you take your best stuff, your full system, outline it, turn it into a course, transcribe it into a book, give them both away for like $27. Or not give them, sell them for $27 and have really great upsells in the process. And I mean, it's a big process to learn how to do this. It's like many months to learn how to do it right. And it might take trying it a few times before you have your first win with it too. It's not like you're going to knock it out in a week or something. But if you do create a steady stream of customers or clients buying your essentially your book that shows them every detail about how to become how to leave corporate and become a consultant and work for yourself, then that's great. I would also consider is something that's a step up from a free list, which you're going to have deliverability problems with. That's ever changing, and all the things like email's way more complicated than it used to be. It's more difficult, right?
Right.
And constantly changing, constantly getting more difficult. Like every 6 months, something gets harder. Is starting a community. And so I'm a big fan of school right now, and hopefully will be for a long time, but whatever. School seems to be the best for building a profitable community right now. And if you were to start a free community for women who are looking to leave corporate and become a consultant, then you would essentially take the same philosophy that you do with the product of teaching your entire blueprint, and you just do it in a different medium, which would be in the community. And the reason communities are better than just an email list is because if you do them right, they're way more responsive and way more interactive, because there's just all these other types of touch points. Whereas these days with an email list, for most people, it's build a big email list and then send a broadcast out where you're essentially shouting at your list.
Right.
And not really responding to them or having a real conversation, whereas communities tend to be more fluid and real time.
Right.
But they also take more fluidity and real-time interaction on your part, which is something that I'm currently struggling with in my own community, because I don't like being there all day, every day, and constantly feeling distracted. I'm trying to put the blinders on and get shit done in my business. But being a social butterfly all day is not super easy for me. Right. So all these things have pluses and minuses.
Yeah.
But
well, Tellman, I actually have to go.
Oh, it's
already 10 o'clock.
I wasn't even looking at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, you do have to go. Well, real quick, right?
Yeah.
Let's tell people about where they can go to find out more about you and your stuff.
Yeah, well, you can go directly to creativeageleader.com, and that will connect you to me and to my podcasts and all the other things I have going on. So that's the best place. That's the main hub. It's
awesome.
creativeageleader.com.
All right, so go to creativeageleader.com to follow Anjel and check out what she's doing. If you're a woman who wants to become a consultant and you know what you're doing, she can help you do that quickly. Easily, maybe after a lot of hard work. I don't know. She can definitely give you the roadmap.
Right. Well, if you're going to build a multi-million-dollar mansion, you need the architect with the blueprint. And that's so what I will help you to do is lay out the blueprint so that you can have your consultancy business and succeed wildly in wild times that are very distracting.
That's awesome. Well, Anjel, thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to future episodes. This is great.
Right. Thank you. Take care.
Rock and roll. All right. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you tomorrow for the Get Shit Done show. I see Arden's jumping in. Glad to be able to pay attention and listen to y'all talk. You got it, Arden. Thanks for being here. And we should get you on like Thursday or Friday. It'd be awesome. All right, everybody. And hey, in the description, we are actually doing a Get Shit Done webinar tonight this afternoon in 6 hours at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're doing a Get Shit Done productivity webinar where I'm going to be doing a live hypnosis session to hypnotize you to focus, to overcome distraction, to overcome procrastination, to dramatically increase your productivity and get shit done. So if you want to join us to supercharge your productivity, click on the webinar registration link in the description, and I will see you there this afternoon. Thank you again for joining us. My name is Tellman Anjel, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Get Shit Done show. Goodbye.